Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is drill, and this verb was suggested by the viewer Luis. Thanks again for this great idea. Now, let's take a look and review some of the ways that we use this verb drill. The first way you might hear or see this verb used means to produce a hole in something by boring it with a drill. And so in that first definition, you can see the noun form of that word, and we'll talk about some different ways to use that noun a little bit later. But if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, I have a picture of a drill, kind of to give you an idea of what that's like. So most people are using power tools, right, to produce that hole. And they can come on all sorts of different shapes and sizes. What you see on the screen here might be someone making a hole in order for certain nails or other small items to fit in. Now, a second way drill gets used can mean to cut away part of a tooth before filling it. So this might be something a dentist does when another person needs medical attention in their mouth. A third way the verb drill gets used can mean to hit, throw, or kick a ball hard and in a straight line. So sometimes in the sport of soccer, which is what we call it here in the United States, but football to everyone else, you might hear someone making a really hard shot, and you might hear the announcer say that he drilled that. You can hear it in baseball as well when someone hits a ball with a lot of force, and again in kind of a straight line. So this is not something that's kind of looping, it's not something that's bouncing a lot, but it's kind of straight through the air. Related to that definition, our fourth one here is to hit something with force. So months ago when it was snowing, I heard people talking about a snowball fight and someone saying, oh, I got drilled by a lot of snowballs, right? So it's meaning they were being hit with force. A fifth way you might hear drill used can mean to instruct someone in a particular topic or subject, and it's through repeated practice or repeated exercises. So if you've been studying English in kind of a formal setting, you might have already done some grammar drills, things that help you learn certain verb tenses or maybe rules related to adjectives, right? But something connected to those topics. A sixth way you might hear drill used is a bit related, but it's either when we subject someone, so we kind of tell them what to do, or we ourselves take part in military exercises. So this is a common verb to hear in connection to people who are training and learning and preparing to serve in the military. For now, you should know that drill is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms drilling. The past tense and participle forms of our verb can be made by just adding the letters ed. Now, our base verb, drill, ends in a voice sound. Our L sounds are voiced in English, and this means the ed ending is just going to make a D sound. So I'm not going to add an extra syllable when I say the word. It should sound like this: drilled, drilled. Okay. Now, we do have a few phrasal verbs to look at. You'll see some similar meanings here. One phrasal verb you might encounter is to drill down. This gets used in a lot of work settings, particularly as it comes to viewing data or information. And usually what it means is you're kind of going down to a more detailed level. Right? So sometimes with different reporting software, right, you might have kind of a big picture, a rather overview of something. And if you want to get more specific, more detailed, you might hear this phrasal verb being used. Let's take a look at an example of that in a sentence. So again, imagine people at work. They're looking at some software or program, and one says to another coworker, let's drill down from weekly sales to daily sales figures, right? So instead of looking at how much was sold in 1 week, we're going to get more specific and look at how much was sold each day. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to drill in. Goes back to one of the definitions we talked about a few minutes ago. So to teach by drills and by repetition. An example of this, the teacher drilled in verb tense usage throughout the semester. Okay. So again, this is going to be someone teaching and really making sure through repetition that students have learned something. The last phrasal verb we'll discuss is to drill into. This can have a couple different meanings. That first goes back to our first definition of our verb. So to bore into, and think bore into, make a hole. You might think of also piercing something. Okay, an example of this. They drilled the new light fixture into the wall. Okay, so you can imagine maybe using, right, a power tool of some kind in order to make a hole to connect that light fixture. The second way you can use drill into, again, means to teach something through repetition. An example of this, the teacher drilled the times tables into her students. Okay, so here maybe we're talking about second, third graders remembering, right? 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, and so on and so on. Okay. Now let's continue using our verb of the day as we repeat some of our different verb tenses and talk a little bit about them. Today we're going to start by reviewing the present perfect progressive. We use this verb tense to talk about an action that started in the past and one that continues into the present. It may even continue into the future. And many times we're using this verb tense to stress how long an action has been ongoing. Now, many teachers and textbooks, even other YouTube videos will call this the present perfect continuous, and that is just fine. It means exactly the same thing as present perfect progressive. The reason I like using the 3 P's together is it can help you remember that you're going to need 3 parts to make your verb. Okay? This is a verb tense where we need to pay attention to our subject. So in the affirmative, if our subject is I, you, we, or they, you're going to use have, H-A-V-E, the participle been, B-E-E-N, and then our ing form of the verb. But if our subject is he, she, or it, use has, H-A-S, been, and then our ing form of the verb. Let's take a look at an example. Oil companies have been drilling holes in the ground for nearly a century. Right? A century is a period of 100 years. Right? So here is that ongoing action, and we're focused on how long it's been ongoing. Now let's talk about making negative present perfect progressive sentences. To do this, again, we pay attention to our subject. We'll use have or has, then not before our participle been, and then that ing form the verb. Now you might see have not combined into haven't, or has not combined into hasn't. That's actually in my example here. The athlete hasn't been drilling any shots since her ankle injury. Okay, so here maybe we're talking about a soccer player who's just not able to really kick the ball in a really hard, direct line drive due to an injury she has suffered. Now let's take a look at making a yes or no question in the present perfect progressive. To do this, start with have or has. Whichever form matches your subject, that subject comes next. Then your participle been, and then that ing form of the verb. Here's the last example. Have scientists been drilling into the ocean floor? Right? So this might go back to that first definition, the idea of making a hole or boring into. Now let's move on and look at some sentences in the simple future. Today we're going to practice making sentences with will. We have a few different ways to make sentences that discuss the future. Will is commonly used when people are making predictions, right? So using the information they have and thinking about what will happen in the future. It also gets used with offers and promises. You might hear it used with plans. That's a little more common when someone is a little less certain or a little less confident about those future plans. The nice thing about making sentences in this verb tense with will is that our pattern stays the same no matter what our subject is. So in the affirmative or positive sentences, we start with a subject, we use will, and then our base verb. Let's look at an example. Our crew will drill holes in the tiles during the renovation project. Okay, so here someone might be again kind of discussing that plan, making a promise, or a prediction of what will be required for this project. Now, if you want to make a negative sentence here in the simple future, again, start with your subject, use will not, and then the base verb. Sometimes will not will be shortened into the contraction won't. W-O-N apostrophe T. I've used it in my example here. Our company won't drill in the wildlife refuge. Again, this tends to be used most commonly with oil companies and maybe other energy producers, and it's kind of that idea of making holes deep in the ground in order to extract or take out the natural resources. Our last example is of a yes or no question. To do this, we start with will, we have our subject, and then the base verb. Here's my last one. Will the dentist drill during the next appointment? Right? Maybe I'm talking to another employee. Many times we call that a hygienist, and asking that person, right? Make a prediction, right? So I know what to expect during the next dentist appointment. Now let's spend that moment, our next moments here, looking at some words related to our verb drill. As I told you at the very beginning here, the word drill can be a noun. That noun has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation as our verb. And this noun drill can have a number of different meanings. The first way you can use that noun drill is to refer to that hand tool or a power tool. It could even be a machine that has some type of rotating cutting tip that's used in order to make some holes. So an example of this, we will use a power drill for this project, right? So I'm not going to try and do this by hand. I'm going to use a little easier tool. Now, a second way to use that noun drill is to talk about the rehearsal of some type of procedure, and it's most commonly used in emergency situations. So an example of this, we're going to have a fire drill, right? So this is where we practice. What would we do? Where would we go if there was a fire? A third way to use the noun drill is to talk about the instruction or training that occurs with military exercises. So an example of this, reservists will participate in many drills today. Okay, so we're talking about a particular group within the military. A fourth way to use our noun drill is to talk about intensive instruction or training in something. So you might hear this used with sports quite often. So again, if we go back to that example of soccer or football, you might hear a coach say something like, let's do some passing drills, right? We're going to do special training routines that will help us pass the ball better to one another. A fifth way we use the noun drill, and it's most commonly used as the drill, is to describe the correct or recognized process or procedure, which is really the right way to do something. So you might hear it used like this. How long have you been working here? Don't you know the drill? Right? So this type of sentences might occur after somebody's made a mistake. They've done something that doesn't follow that correct procedure, right? And so someone is really saying, oh, you know how we do this, right? This happens, then this, and then, right? So that's another way you may hear the noun drill used. Another related word you might encounter is the noun driller. This could be a person who drills, and most commonly that would be as their profession, how they're going to earn an income. An example of this: let's talk to the well driller about this idea, right? So we're talking about a person who's responsible for making holes. One last example for today, and it's the noun drill team. So many times this is used to describe kind of a group of marchers, and it's usually an exhibition, and they engage in certain what's called precision drills. So they're being very precise with their movements, a lot of coordination amongst the members. Sometimes this is used in connection to military exhibition drills. Here in the United States, you will see teams of dancers, teams of people that twirl flags, or they might have routines with pom-poms. So sometimes you'll hear people say, I was on drill in high school. And that's just really the shortened form of drill team. So that's my example sentence here, our last one. She participated in the drill team all 4 years of high school. Right? This can be a really intensive activity. Sometimes these teams also march in parades. Many times they are part of halftime entertainment as well. Well, thank you all so much for watching today's video. Another special thank you to Luis for suggesting today's video. I hope you all have a great day.